Favorite podcast.
Yeah.
Guys,
Wings. Let's go.
Wow. I was an esthetician for 14 years. That's where my passion for helping people, being of service to people began. When you're able to help someone walk better because you did a pedicure on them, it felt really good. As much as I loved it, 10 years older, carpal tunnel, being pregnant, spark was not there anymore. That led me on this whole journey, tarot, mediumship, Akashic Records, and because of that led me then to the financial literacy that I was offered with this business, helped heal my money wounds, which then in turn now broke a generational cycle.
A niggle?
A niggle.
It's like a
Yeah, like your gut feeling or your like intuitive knowing.
Let's see what the objective thing ChatGPT says. Temperance.
Wow.
I don't even know what that word means. This is episode number 8 of the Geist Gennard podcast. Featuring Anastasia. How are you doing today, Anastasia?
I am doing great, Ty. How are you doing?
I am doing absolutely splendid. Thank you for being here. I am super excited to get together. We've been talking about it for a good while. We actually arranged to do this a month ago, or maybe 2 months ago. And for whatever reasons, the forces that be had us do it today. And some things in our business and in our lives even felt a little bit more aligned to do it today, ironically or coincidentally, synchronistically, perhaps, which is cool. You know, it's interesting to think about how a conversation would go in one setting or at one time versus another setting or another time as well, too. And what kind of framing would be within that conversation. One of the things that I think fundamentally changed is I'm excited to talk about both what you do for business and also what your background is prior to the business as well too, and what you do being a mom. I know that's one thing that you are. I know that we've talked about light work and the spiritual side of your life as well too, and then obviously the business that we're both a part of as well too, and how those things kind of interweave with each other. And so, like, would you be open to just giving a bit of your background of who you are, where you came from, and then how that led into getting into business as well too?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have always been in southern Saskatchewan. This is where I grew up, born and raised. And after high school, I decided to go get my aesthetics course and like, kind of enter the trades in that way. So I was an esthetician for about 13, 14 years. Absolutely loved it. That's where my passion, I guess, for helping people and being of service to people began because when you're able to help someone, say, walk better because you did a pedicure on them, it felt really good. But with that also being said, as much as I loved it, when I started my family, it started to take a toll on my body because, of course, I was like 10 years older. My hand started to get some signs of carpal tunnel. And then because also being pregnant, that kind of changes your body physiology as well. And I couldn't do the work anymore. I found it very hard. It was very painful. That passion kind of really started to dwindle. That spark was not there anymore. So I decided to become a full-time stay-at-home mom within that, and then went on to have 3 children in total, being at home here on the farm. We raise cattle and grain as well. So kind of, I guess, a new little passion sparked where it's like I got to be a little bit more involved in the farm because I wasn't working at a 9 to 5 anymore. And because of all of those synchronicities that were happening, it led me to wanting to homeschool my children because I homeschooled my children, that led me on this whole journey, like you said, of like light work, being of service to people in a different way and helping them just I'm not the one healing them. It was just me being able to listen to them and then they healed themselves, which is
Mm.
also something I noticed as an esthetician. Everybody poured their life onto me. And then by the end of it, they had all the answers they needed, and I didn't have to say one thing. So
Mm.
I found like being in light work, that was the exact same thing. Some people just need someone to listen to them, maybe offer some perspectives to change their mindset in any way. And within doing that, I grew a little bit of like a side hustle, I suppose, helping people with that. So it included like tarot, mediumship, just like all that kind of talking and Akashic Records and things like that to maybe get down to the root cause of whatever it is they were going through, whether it was illness or just mentality shift in that way. And because of that, that led me then to my friend who was in WFG. And she had a very similar journey. She's a stay-at-home mom, she's reflexologist, light worker herself. And she's like, you have to come over and check this out because this is a holistic approach to our finances. Because we also worked with like people with money manifesting, like we all want to manifest money and heal those money wounds, those generational money wounds. And that was becoming more apparent in my light working was people were like, coming from Akashic Records or past generational things, like even with their last name, being like, this is my last name, and people think that I'm poor because this is my last name, or vice versa. People think I should be a millionaire because of my last name. So just healing those things. And it really intrigued me because I was like, the financial literacy that I was offered with this business helped heal my money wounds, which then in turn now broke a generational cycle.
Mm.
So that's a bit of my timeline. It's into where we are now.
I love that. I love that. Lots to touch on there. So letting them heal themselves and how that interplayed with your previous career and the other things that you've done in the spiritual side of tarot and what were the types of work that you did on people as well too? It was tarot and
Akashic Records and like mediumship, so psychic appointments and sessions and things like that. So working with spirit guides, or there's a lot of different names for them, your guardian angels, your team, whichever you resonate most with.
and what would you do when you worked with that with a person? So you'd
So
work
I
with
would
spirit guides or whatever you'd call them, and you go through a process of transmuting energy with them somehow.
Yeah, so it would be like whether it be like a message that would come forward or within them telling a story, then to be like, hey, do you see where you're divinely guided by this spirit guide or this guardian angel or this loved one that has passed? They're now coming through to offer you this message and like kind of helping them connect the dots of like you said, like there's always these two sides to the people where people like they just kind of already intuitively know, whereas sometimes people need a little bit help to be
Mm,
like you already have the intuitive knowing, you just maybe weren't aware of it yet. So
right.
helping them connect the dots in that way by maybe sharing a message with them or just repeating exactly what they told me back to them. And then they're like, oh, light bulb.
I love that. I love that. There's this gentleman, I believe his name is John Edwards, and there's also a lady named Teresa Caputo. These are both people that my mom has always been obsessed with. My mom likes crime shows. And then she likes some spiritual stuff, some psychic stuff. Those are her, her potatoes and gravy. And mostly it's the police, stuff. But when it does come to that type of stuff, she's super fascinated. And I've also shared that as well too, as I've also been very interested in how does that work, right? And there are these two individuals I mentioned. Teresa Caputo, she has a pretty cool hairdo and she's got the high production value for her show. And she'll go to these events where she'll be like, I don't know who I'm gonna read, but I'm probably definitely gonna read somebody. And I have no idea what's gonna happen, but let's see what happens, basically. And she just stands up on the stage and there's an audience, and then she senses energy essentially. And then she's like, who has a person who's passed recently that is this and this and X and Y and Z? And then she goes into this story, this exchange of telling someone what this spirit or this entity who's recently passed has to say to this particular person, and it heals something, and they had no context that this was going to happen, that particular person, and voila, she rinses and repeats that exact process over and over and over again. And when I found out that there's this really high production value, person who is producing lots of content on exactly what she does, and she just does it repeatedly over and 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 over again. She has a massive following, and she tries her best to explain how she does it by sensing energy. She's open about the fact that it's different for everybody, but some people have certain senses that they do easier than others. It's very interesting to me because I really love truth and self-development. I'm super passionate about those two things, understanding how things work and how people can benefit from them. And so if there's even the slightest chance that her entire career is not built on lies, then it seems like there's some interesting things to delve into in regards to what it is she's doing. There's also a guy named John Edwards. This is someone that one of the leaders, one of the people who have the biggest businesses in our organization, in our business, Ed Milet, had on. And John Edwards does the very same thing as well too. And it's a bit of a different style, but it's the same concept. He explains it the same way. He has the same humble nature about him. And there's lots of these people. Those are just a couple of the bigger names. There's also one named Tyler Harry. You can look up any of these people, right? And so I like thinking about things logically. I have friends who think about things logically. And that's what I love is like, how does this work? You know what I mean? Like, how can we actually, if there's truth to this stuff, like understand it and utilize it, right? And sometimes there isn't a logical way to understand it. It's more of an observational, integrative, experiential learning that comes with this type of stuff, which most people just don't end up doing, or experiencing quickly in in regards to them not having a particular passion or getting into that, scenario essentially, right? And so we also touched on Akashic Records. Could you explain to people what that means?
Yeah, so the Akashic Records is kind of like, if you could imagine how I imagine it, is it's like walking into like a big library where you got like the floor to ceiling, like shelves of books, the ladders there to stand on to kind of move you from book to book. So this is just everything that has happened. And if this resonates with you, that we do reincarnate and we all have past lives that we've lived through that then kind of play out in our life here on earth, but we sometimes don't necessarily remember why, like say we have a fear of spiders and we're like, well, I don't know why I have a fear of spiders. Well, let's go into your library and see like where the root cause, like where this comes from. So your Akashic record would be that book we pull off the shelf and open up and be like, oh, like in this lifetime you were bit by a spider and passed away or something like
Maybe,
that. Like just
maybe
for
you were eaten by a gigantic spider on Mars or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what the Akashic records are, is comment kind of like I guess you can think of it also as your blueprint. If that's the way your brain works and you want to see like a blueprint where it's like this is where that stems from or that goes to or and things like that to help you heal in this lifetime. Because when we can heal an Akashic record in this lifetime, then it's like we can put that book on the shelf and it just stays on the shelf. It's not going to come up again. So say it was a money wound. You had a lifetime where in your Akashic records that say you were robbed. So now in this lifetime you're manifesting that as like I'm not going to make money because I don't want to get robbed again. So you create that manifestation without consciously knowing.
Hmm.
And those are the things that kind of come up as I'm like energy, because everything's energy. We can kind of have a logic or non-logic point of it, like everything is energy. So it's tapping into your energy and just following like an intuitive knowing or a gut feeling, a niggle, just saying like this is what it is that is
A
leading me to
niggle?
that. A niggle. Yeah,
That's a
Rebecca
great
Campbell
word.
uses that terminology and I
What does
love
a
it.
niggle? What does a niggle mean? It's like a hey,
Yeah,
hey.
like your gut feeling or your like intuitive knowing, like it's just like that ping, it could be in your brain or just like a tingling on your body that lets you know that yes, this is truth.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. When I think about off the top of my head Akashic Records and all the things I've tried to learn about of it from a more scientific or more of like trying to objective, how does this interplay with reality type of way, if it exists? It's a source of all information. So it's like you're tapping into universal infinite intelligence. And some people purport that they experience this when they sleep. There's a guy who is recently on the Joe Rogan podcast. He debated a mathematician, Terrence Howard, I believe is his name, and they were talking about a bunch of stuff. And part of his story, for instance, was he says he came up with all these crazy patents and, whatever that they were talking about, this deep stuff about metaphysics and this and that, when he was in a sleep state. And he said that he had access to the Akashic Records essentially, and he was able to learn about all of this information because that's just what happened to him. And that's essentially what he was purporting is there's this state of consciousness or this place of, vibration or whatever you call it that you can tap into as a human, get access to all that has been and learn from that process. Now, this is what ChatGPT says. Do you use ChatGPT much?
I just started using it and I was skeptical at first, but the first time I used it, I was like, okay, this is a game changer. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've probably used it 30 times since 8 a.m. just today. That's not even inaccurate because I was having fun with it today. But also, I use it like 10 times on average per day. I've used it almost since it first came out, like 2 and some years ago, and it is a game changer, 100%. It's basically taking in all the knowledge from the internet and putting it into one search engine, and then you can just ask it anything, and it just responds, which is phenomenal. So, I use it a lot as like my new Google, and they try to integrate it as well too. And so a lot of people who'd be watching this would probably also be like, I wonder what ChatGPT would say. So let's see what the objective thing ChatGPT says. So it says the Akashic Records are believed to be a metaphysical compendium of all universal events, thoughts, experiences, and knowledge, past, present, and future, often described as a cosmic library or energetic database. These records are said to hold the information of every soul's journey and the history of the universe itself. The concept of the Akashic Records is rooted in ancient spiritual traditions, especially in Theosophy, Hinduism, and some New Age thought. In theosophical terms, the Akashic records are said to exist in Akasha, a Sanskrit word for meaning ether or spiritual substance, and they can be accessed through spiritual practices or higher states of consciousness. Some believe that individuals can tap into the Akashic records through meditation, deep reflection, or psychic abilities to gain insight into their lives or find answers to existential questions. Although widely discussed in spiritual and mystical circles, there is no scientific evidence to support the existence of Akashic records. They are often viewed as a metaphor for a deeper universal connection or a way to understand the interconnectedness of all things. To learn more, you might find additional insights through a spiritual or metaphysical book and practices that explore the Akashic records. What are your thoughts on how it described that?
I would say it's pretty bang on. I think even it picked up what I said and then it also picked up what you said and like it we were both like on the right track to what ChatGPT had just said. And yeah, it is yeah, I guess it could be utilized as a tool. Your Akashic records can be a tool to utilize to help a person gain clarity on their life mission and purpose.
Totally. Yeah. And it's interesting that it touches on, it could also just, I mean, we don't know what it is. They kind of say that about natural supplements as well, too. It's like, hey, I don't know, ashwagandha, smell of the horse, maybe, oh, they used it for a while. Who knows? There's not enough studies, but a lot of people buy it, a lot of people use it, and people who utilize certain supplements get a massive benefit. Kind of similar to these things. It can be a massive game changer for their entire life. They buy that supplement for the rest of their entire life because magnesium helps them sleep, and they know it's good for their muscles, just like Akashic Records and tapping into if there is a state like that, and people, lots of people purport that they get benefit from doing certain meditative processes, going into different states of consciousness. If there is something there to believe and tap into, to know, then that's pretty powerful, right? So it's interesting to me that kind of like tarot, kind of like numerology or whatnot, of seeing 1111s or 444, they leave room at least for this. We're not sure exactly how it works. There are some people who purport that they utilize it. There are some people who see it as more symbolic, and I think that's good. I think that's good because if you've never experienced something firsthand, then it's probably good not to just blatantly trust something that would fundamentally change your perception of reality. Because then what's reality? Reality is really just what we know and have come to understand about how things work, right? Everyone has a subjective reality, and the goal is to be passionate about things and happy as much as possible, to be of service to others as much as possible in a general sense, and to know things that make us do those in a higher functioning way, right? And so not everybody is necessarily going to be passionate about this, so they might never really pursue it because they don't really care. But for people who do and do want to look further, there is this really cool journey that you can pursue if you so choose to be like, okay, let's really cut the shit. Like, is there something to this? And there's lots of books, lots of podcasts, this and that you can watch to kind of understand, okay, what is going on here? What can happen? I had a I had a meeting with this spiritual lady, a medium, I suppose, online like 3 years ago when I was going through this monk mode phase in my life. And I was like, I need to understand if this is true. Because if there's any truth to this, that means like a lot. So I was like skeptical, but I was like, if there's any legitimacy, this is crazy. This is awesome. So I had this experience with this medium. We went over a Zoom call. She told me some things, and it was interesting. She said some things that resonated on a high level. Cool. Following that, I tried to do a past life regression by myself. There was like a protocol for that online, and I did that. And I just wrote things down in a really messy format. Some people call that automatic writing. Perhaps was partially that. And tried to understand what, if there was past lives that I've had, what those would be. That's been a passion of mine for a long time, understanding if there's anything to that. And I got things out of that, what I was like, I could be completely making up, or maybe it was true. I don't know. I had this feeling, and I wrote these little things that I was someone in a military situation in the early 1900s. I wrote that I was a blue alien, and there was something else. And I was like, huh, seems like those. And I was like a philosopher, like someone in a secret society. And I was like, I could be completely making that up. And that's just fractions of my thoughts of like how I like to portray myself or something. I don't know. Or there's something to that. One of the first videos I ever made online, which is delisted now, was of me reviewing some of these big YouTubers who went to this spiritual commune in Italy called Damahur, and they got past life regressions, and they were skeptical the whole time, and were still skeptical after, but it worked on all of them. And they all had stories that they were like, whoa, the girl was like, whoa, I was like a dude, and I was in the desert, and this and that were happening, and the other guys had these different experiences because they did it in a facilitated environment with these people, and none of them believed it at all. But after, they were like, well, what was that? That was just, they got me to meditate and had those thoughts. Maybe I was making it up, maybe I wasn't, but it felt kind of vivid and, had these different visions. So pretty cool stuff there. And in regards to the types of senses or the type of work that you actually do for people and how that goes down for someone to really grasp what type of experience one gets when you've worked with them. To frame that, there are these clairs, right? They're the clairs. There's clairaudience, there's clairvoyance, there's claircognizance, and is that all of them? Is there any more?
There's a clairsentient, and I believe there's one more.
But those are some different aspects of it, what an intuitive person can use, different like senses that someone would have as a strength to do some sort of a reading or help someone in some sort of way. And the concept is we all have different areas that, if utilized, we're better at, kind of thing, is my understanding of it. What would be a story or an example of some people that you've helped or you've had experiences with utilizing your abilities in this regard?
Yeah, so the clair that I'm most familiar with is there's actually two. There's the clairvoyance, so like the seeing, and the claircognizance, which is just knowing. Those are the two that are my strongest, and that is just like being able to see things. So say, um, as a child is mainly when that was the strongest, was like I would see like of someone who has passed. So a grandparent or a great grandparent, it's like I would see them in spirit. So that is what I would utilize. And then when I am working with someone, oftentimes you'll see me looking around them. I'll look around them. I'm not necessarily looking right at them, where you'd probably notice like Teresa Caputo would do that similar thing, or other people that work in that field. They don't necessarily look at the person, they're looking around them. So they're going to see, let's say a person, or like this is where I see their spirit guides. So whether that be a tiger or another entity of some sort, I will see that around the person within their energy field. Because we all know like our aura, it's like around like 2 feet away from us. So that's where I would see those in. And then just the claircognizance of just knowing. So I can sit, and it's not that I necessarily hear anything, it's like I just know. And then that also helps me visualize what the entity looks like. So, say, like you said, the blue alien. So then I would just know that this blue alien, their head is shaped in kind of like an egg shape. They maybe have some gold markings on them. That's just me just knowing what they look like.
Maybe something like this. Who knows?
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. That's awesome. This is what ChatGPT says these are. Clairvoyance, clear seeing, the ability to see images, symbols, or visions that provide insight into situations or people. This could include seeing past events, future possibilities, or otherworldly scenes. And so is that kind of resonate like with when
Yeah.
you're looking at these things related to their energy or their aura or something of that regard is what could be visible there because of, how the universe could work and what's stored with what we are and how we are essentially.
Yeah, and oftentimes, like, because this is probably just like where the lifetime I'm born into now, so it'll look like an old TV to me. So it'd either be like a movie playing, that would be like your past, present, or future scenarios. It plays as a movie for me in my mind, or like kind of off to the side of them. This show will almost like pop up like a movie, and that's how it's played out.
Right. And you probably are amused by that process as well too. Like you think that that's like a nice way to interpret it. You think that your brain kind of melded that for you because that makes sense in how to perceive it.
I think I would believe so, and then also helping them also picture it as well. Because if that maybe isn't their strong clair, then how can we wrap their brain or their conscious mind to be like, well, how are you seeing this? It's like, well, this is how I see it. This is how it's played out. So then it almost makes sense for them as well. Whereas some people like they can't see anything at all. Even in a meditation, they're like the screen's blank.
Hmm.
There's nothing happening. So
Totally.
then this just paints a picture for them.
Totally, totally. It's kind of like the concept of remote viewing, which is seeing things or, detecting something that isn't around you. It's kind of a bit of a different thing, but similar field, utilizing your senses. Some people have, like in this situation, maybe they have a sense that's not seeing, but it's like feeling. And so their body feels a certain way. And if they're paying attention to that, they can start to train that ability, just like any other ability, and realize that they're good at noticing the sensations in their body knowing where, this and that is and how to interpret information based off that. That's interesting. I love that. And with clairaudience, it says clear hearing. So the ability to hear messages or sounds that are not audible to the physical ear. This can include hearing voices, sounds, or music that offer guidance or information. Do you have any examples of experiences you've had with that, or like something you've seen someone do in that scenario, or example of that?
Yeah, that's not one that is strong for me. And I actually don't know many people who are strong with that one because I feel like there maybe is a stigma around that where it could be maybe labeled as a disorder of some sort. So I don't know
Mm.
too much about it, but I guess like I can like hear things like whether it be a message, but to me it's just like a thought. It's not an actual voice, or if it is music, it it's just kind of a thought.
Yeah. Okay. That's super interesting, by the way. Just like a quick little like addition onto what you said there with the disability thing. People thinking or perceiving certain individuals as less, less capable in how people typically conduct their lives because they're experiencing different senses. And like, yes, there probably are traditional things, general things that they can't do by themselves, perhaps, or be more on that, lent into that direction of things. But what does that mean they're experiencing? Like, if you were in their brain, what does that mean they're experiencing? They're probably experiencing things that are more related to stuff that's in going on in their head and in their senses, and that isn't immediately presented and demanded upon them as well too, right? And I've heard a lot of people talk about how people who might have some sort of disabilities or less capabilities in obvious ways might have strengths in some of these other ways as well too, which is pretty interesting to think about. It's kind of like if you think about Stevie Wonder or some of these artists who are blind or whatever it is, becoming super powerful world leading musicians because they used all their other senses and just became super beasts at using those for how they wish, right? And so if there's areas of life, if there are these clairs, these aspects of spiritual ability that we do all have access to, and we've just never been educated on them. There isn't some sort of education process. If there's any legitimacy to any of it, then that just means that we don't have a society that helps us with it. And there's probably people who are better at it who've just had experience developing it, kind of in the dark room over there, sort of a thing, which I find really fascinating because that just means that we have a lot of potential to grow in learning how to be a holistically developed human, how to utilize our brains and our abilities to the maximum of our potential. It makes me think about this memory competition. There's like a worldwide memory league. I first heard about it from a book called Moonwalking with Einstein, where they talk about mnemonics and how to remember things in a really powerful way by essentially using something that's extremely stimulating to your brain, and then you remember it forever. For instance, on our business, we have these things called a code. So it's a string of 6 digits that we use for all of the business we do. It's attached to all of our paperwork, etc. And a fun thing I do for everyone on my team is right when we get their code, I just did one yesterday, we decide what their mnemonic is going to be. So my code is related to numerology, and then it has a funny thing associated with that as well too. A powerful thing that excites me enough and makes me think, oh, this would be fun to share with somebody because it's funny and interesting. And then you remember it forever, or it's stimulating to think about as well too, right? And there are these people who compete in these memory competitions. There's also a documentary on Netflix about it, and they talk about how you can do these extreme processes for remembering things to remember like 100 deck of cards, and there's a competition for who can remember the most, and it's increasing every year. Same thing with like remembering the most amount of digits of pi and all of these other types of things. And so people are going to the nth degree, learning that our brains are like barely tapped into at all on these fundamental things like memory, and that's not even bringing into play any of this psychic type of things, which, if at all has legitimacy, also expands what we can do intrinsically as well too. So another reason it's interesting hearing someone who has experience, and knows some people from these types of backgrounds, and what you've experienced and used these for. And I'll finish these last two, but do you have any thoughts or any comments in regards to that?
Yeah, I guess like we do utilize like that moment, like for anything, like for studying, and everybody's brain works differently. But for me, it was like when I was studying for a test, I would walk around the room. And then when I would go to write that test, I'd be like, oh, when I walked by the lamp, I remember reading this sentence. That's the answer.
Hmm. Like
So
when you walk by
utilizing
the lamp, what do you mean by that?
yeah, so I'd be like, say, reading my notes, and I'd be walking around, like, say, the living room. And then when I go to now it's time for the test, I read the question, say it's like, I don't know, what color was Susie's chair? Well, I remember reading in my notes as I walked by the lamp that Susie's chair was red.
Right.
So I guess it's remote viewing. I put myself back into that moment when I was walking around the living room reading my notes. And I remember, like, oh, the answer to this question was what I read when I walked by the lamp.
Hmm.
So then my memory attaches the two, if
Hmm.
that makes sense.
Yeah, it's kind of like there's this common adage thing I heard a lot where if you chew the same type of gum while you study and when you take the test, then you're going to think about the thoughts you had when you chewed that unique gum. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, totally. So just connecting yourself back to that specific archive of memories for when you need it, right? And a fun philosophical question is what is life? Some people would say our memories. So, like, if our memories are what life is what everything is comprised of our memories, and there's a way to massively amplify that and or connect ourselves to more memories we've never had access to, then I don't know what that says about life or the ability for our lives to be more expansive, but it seems pretty important and pretty fundamental to understand, how that interplays. It doesn't seem like something I would gawk at if I didn't have any, experience with that type of thing, right? So I love that. Thanks for sharing that. And the last two oh, there's a few of them. I'll just bang these out as well too. We don't have to touch on them, but just so I cover them. So we went through clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, clear sensing, the ability to feel or sense emotions, energies, or physical sensations that aren't directly linked to the environment. People with this ability might pick up on emotions from others or feel the presence of spirits or entities. Clair cognizance, clear knowing, the ability to just know something without any logical explanation. This could manifest as sudden insights, intuitive thoughts, or understanding situations without needing evidence. Clair aliens, is that how you say that? Claire, you know that one? Clair
That
aliens?
might be the one I didn't remember.
Clear smelling. I have a terrible sense of smell. So maybe I haven't tapped into this and I have that ability because it's a psychic ability. No, I have terrible smell. This is definitely not mine. The ability to smell scents that others can't, often associated with spiritual or psychic impressions. This could include smelling flowers, perfumes, or even the scent of deceased loved ones. Clairgustance is the last one. So apparently there's six. Clear tasting. I guess that makes sense. Six senses. The ability to taste something without physically eating it. People with this ability might experience tastes related to spirits or energies around them. These abilities are often developed through practice, awareness, and spiritual growth. People who are sensitive to these energies can sometimes receive messages or guidance from higher realms, spirits, or even their own intuition, helping them navigate life in a deeper way. Pretty cool to hear what ChatGPT says about something like that. And in regards to that and this, before we touch on kind of the business and some more things along those lines, You've also talked about, in our personal conversations, about working with the Canadian Indigenous people as well, too, hey?
Yeah, just for more like personal like findings or navigation. I guess in my personal healing journey as I have Indigenous descent and with all the faiths that we have on the planet. There's so many. I wanted to like root back into what I guess the belief system that the Indigenous had when they were like kind of the ones that were here first, I guess you can say. And the practices they did, the rituals, the ceremonies, the beliefs they had, because when I did that, it really resonated and almost could connect the dots of like the path I was going on as a light worker. The things are they're very similar. So it really intrigued me on like I'm healing myself and my lineage and learning more about the indigenous cultures for my own personal knowing. It's like it was almost just like again, like maybe the Akashics like came flooding in of like you already know this, you've already done this, your ancestors have already done this and are now left clues or breadcrumbs that you're finally finding.
Mm,
And so every breadcrumb I pick up, it's like it always linked back to what the culture was with the indigenous people and their ceremonies. Like even right now, I have sweetgrass right beside my computer that I'm going to use once we're done to just send whatever prayers we had that came through today are going to go up to Creator.
mm,
So utilizing those practices in my life and also my children's lives, because now we're directly back connected to Earth, which I guess you can say that the more we're aware with our minds, the more I find people that are, say, on this journey or navigating what this looks like, my clients that I've worked with, we're all going back to nature and what like you said with the supplements with ashwagandha and things like that, it's like they've used them before, this is what they helped with, I don't know if it's going to work, but they used them and this is what it did. Well, now we're using them again and oh, they're doing the same thing they did millions of years or thousands of years ago, however far back we want to go.
mm,
So just connecting that back to that culture and just making it more known because we all need to find our way back to Earth again, Mother Earth and Creator, and because without that, without the land, without the plants, without the animals, then who are we? Who
mm,
are we as humans? We actually aren't. They're not dependent on us. We are dependent on them.
mm,
And a funny thing I was told by a farmer was like, the wheat, I don't work for the wheat. The wheat doesn't work for me. I work for the wheat because
mm,
I need to go out there every day and check on it. I need to make sure that it's taken care of. So I'm a servant leader to my crops. And
mm,
we've kind of forgot that thinking that the crops are the servants for us. And
mm,
it's like, no, like it's we all work together, but let's go back to being a servant leader for each other.
mm. Perspective,
Hmm.
perspective. Do you have any stories that you could tell, maybe one in specific, without using names or anything like that, of something that really touched you, of whether it's an Indigenous person or not, that you did work with, and what kind of happened, what that process was like?
Yeah, so the one story that is kind of coming to me now is through this I found a ceremony it's called the closing of the bones ceremony. And if you Google it or maybe ChatGPT would know like it stems to like the Spaniards, but then it also comes from like the Russia area. So it's like if you the more you look into it, it's like every culture utilize this ceremony called the closing of the bones. And I guess that's one of the practices I didn't touch on was being like a healer or a guide for women in pregnancy and in postpartum. So that's what this closing of the bones is utilized for, is to after a woman has had her baby, they wrap someone wraps them in different like shawls or rebozos is the ceremony or the cultural name. And it's just like scarves that the mother is then wrapped in to essentially like close her up after being through the portal of birth.
Okay, okay.
So it
I put in ChatGPT, explain the closing of the bones ceremony, and then I put even shorter and simpler, and it put the closing of the bones ceremony is a postpartum ritual meant to help a woman heal after childbirth. It involves physically wrapping or binding the body to restore balance and alignment. The ceremony also offers emotional and spiritual support, helping the mother recover and feel nurtured after the intense experience of birth. It's a time for reflection and community with prayers, energy work, and connection. It honors the transition into motherhood, helping the mother heal both physically and emotionally.
Yeah. That was perfect. Great job, ChatGPT. Yeah, that absolutely encompasses what that's like. So it's bringing the village back. So again, coming back to Mother Earth or nature, we've lost the village because we all live so far away. Some of us, we're like very grateful that we get to still be around our families, but many of us, we don't live close to our parents. We don't live close to siblings. We're just alone. So this was bringing back the village for this individual and closing of the bones. And she had lost her child. So it was, she had gone through the birth portal, whether again, this is just my opinion and my beliefs, but it doesn't matter when you give birth, whether the child survives or not, you're still entering the birth portal. So we want to bring all of you back to you because now that mother is the only heartbeat within her body because
Mm,
now that other heartbeat has left. So as you know, like postpartum, there's postpartum depression, there's a lot of things that could happen and this closing ceremony just brings the mother back. She's completely supported by sisters and other women of the village. And with this individual, the spirit came forward and was like, I'm ready to come back. So when we lose a child or that, like oftentimes just not the right time. There was just a lesson that had to be learned and going forward. So now helping that mother and like with the sensing of like the spirit coming back, I was able to walk the mother through that healing of like, you're not alone in this. It's okay if you like say she was hearing things. She's like, I feel like it's here, like that soul is here. It's like, okay, you're not crazy. You're okay. That's okay to feel that. You can move through that now. Like just witnessing someone go through that moment in their life without any judgment,
mm,
not wanting to help or heal or save them, just letting the mother be as she's wrapped up and let whatever her body needs to do. Because even a thing that we, as humans, I feel like we've got out of as adults is we don't shake it off anymore. We hold on to it.
mm,
Well, now that's going to manifest into a sore shoulder or some other illness that is just going to create because now we're holding on to that trauma. So allowing the mother to cry and grieve and like move her body, whether it's shake and like get that energy out, move that stagnant energy out of her. And then now seeing her now 2 years later and it like it's just a whole new person. It's like she's got her light back. She's ready to build her or grow her family even more and just knowing that she was able to be supported in that way, that was what the passion was for me, was helping women to see that and then utilizing cultural ceremonies to bring us back home to ourselves.
mm. I love that. I love that. That's awesome. That's awesome. So, having the ability to shake it off and release tension is something that process is really helpful for these people to do. And you see some older folk who have a lot of vibrance and they move quickly and they seem healthy and they seem playful and excited and stimulated. And then you also see people who are very young and none of the sort, right? It makes me think about I was in Banff last or earlier this year, at the start of this year, and I was in the hot tub with some of my friends, and one of my friends, she was like we were like giving each other like shoulder rubs or whatever, and she's like, "How are you not tense at all?" And I feel like I have done a lot of things at that period before, the past couple years before that in particular, when I was in this kind of monk mode of my life, where I just really tried to journal a lot and heal trauma. And like sometimes I would literally just go park my car somewhere and I'd like allocate times, like completely being honest, to just like cry about something, to just try to like deeply let out emotions and like nobody can hear you if you're just like in your car somewhere randomly as well too. Because I was really trying to understand how the universe worked and how energy worked. And I was like, it seems like there's an energetic release when you cry and when your body has this sort of like compulsion thing going on with like, like you can feel it. Like when you really cry, like when you like cry like hardcore, your body is like possessed. You know what I mean? And like you have these convulsions and whatever. And then after you feel like pretty good, right? And so I was kind of experimenting prior to that, but then also just general self-care, whatever. I thought about that. It's cool knowing that there are practices that are available to people and that people could do more as well too to help themselves release that tension, which would heal them physically. So for anyone who's more logically minded and are like, how can I recover at the best that I possibly can? Right? All of that type of stuff, these types of inner work things are not something, again, to gawk at. They're actually something that can be very legitimate in releasing tension overall. It's the same thing as like saying sorry to people that you felt bad for doing something to in the past. That releases your own trauma, your own thoughts are healed from that, right? So that's awesome. I love that. And then you talked about helping someone through the portal of birth. You say the portal of birth? That's what it was called? That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's a pretty epic word for Vijay. I love that. And helping someone through the process of, one of those most fundamental moments for their lives, and for the start of this new incarnation as well too. That's pretty cool. I love that you get to help people with that. There's probably not a lot of roles that someone can be a part of that besides like a doctor, or a nurse or something like that traditionally. And it's interesting how that seems to play. Like, what kind of an environment were you in when that was occurring? Were you in a home?
Yeah, typically it's in their home or an environment that they feel the safest in, because if you don't feel safe, you're not going to release to the capacity you need to release. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of interesting you brought up like doctors and nurses and things like that. So again, that being removed from culture and set into an institution. And that's where like you're not safe and things like that. So then we have to come home and now release that in some way. So again, like if anybody listening has children, or if you have nieces or nephews or friends who have children, when they have a tantrum, they're just releasing energy that they have bottled up or received. As adults, it's frowned upon for us to have a tantrum. But if you just pause right now and go have a tantrum in your bathroom and like scream and yell and shout and look in the mirror, then come back and tell me how great you feel. Like our young ones can teach us so much in that way. And that's what I was watching too, was like, well, they're releasing. How can I find a ceremony or a practice that grown-ups or adults feel safe in releasing too? Because even animals do it. A deer runs in front of you in front of the car and they survive, and then you watch them in the field and they just shake it off and go on their merry way.
Yeah.
They don't hold on to any trauma, because oftentimes if you look at animals in the wild, like they don't have illnesses or chronic things that we have as humans.
And that's why Taylor Swift makes so much money, is because all the animals listen to her as well too. Everyone needs to shake it off, and
Yes,
she is killing it
she's onto something.
in that regard. I love it. What does light work mean to you?
Um, Yeah, this is like a tough, like it's just like that knowing of like um just raising the vibration, I guess, on for humanity or for the collective. So like the lighthouse, if you want to kind of relate it to that. So it's just that beacon of light that that shares a perspective or offers like that safe space for someone to heal, and almost like paves the path, I guess. So if we want to go back to tarot, to me the light worker is like the hermit. He's got his light shining for the rest to kind of follow, because he climbed the mountain. Here's the light, follow the light. And I guess you, whatever religion you could, that's probably in philosophies across the board, of like follow the light and that will lead you to happiness. So as light workers here down on earth is just creating that vibration or that space where it's just light. This is just the light. So yeah, with the light, there's going to be the shadow though. So
Hmm.
the light worker is there to help you through your shadow as well.
Right. A light worker is someone working with the light in a place, a state of polarity, in a state where there is dark and light. They're trying to make a difference. They're trying to follow a path of prosperity or, love light or whatever you want to call it, helping. That's
Yeah.
awesome. How would you relate that to our business as well too? And just to preface what we do, right? We help people with holistic financial planning, helping people get to where they want to go. And we also have a really incredible community and team framework that our business is foundationed in. So that this is how, for instance, we connected, knowing people of this similar community. We're all helping each other with the same thing. We're in business for ourselves, but not by ourselves, and we help people help more people and also overall in life. But in your experience, how has your light work path, your spiritual path, and all of these things, how does that relate? How would someone who doesn't get or has never heard light work relate what they do in our business per se, or in business to light work, that term?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think it would be like you mentioned that holistic approach to finances and sharing the financial literacy that I guess the light has never been shown on, like in my lifetime anyway. Before coming here, I did not know of a tax shelter, for instance. It's like, well, I thought that was something only like the elites could have access to. It's like, no, now as like our mission statement is no family left behind. I really resonated with that as a light worker because that is my core value as well. I'm leaving no woman behind. I get in my previous career that no woman is being left behind. But now no family is left behind. So it's expanded to broader of like the family unit because I was always like, how do we get the family unit back?
Hmm.
Everybody's so divided. And like this person's working here, this that parent is working here, the kids are gone to school. Everybody's separated. There's no unity. Whereas when we came here, it was like, oh, this financial literacy, this opportunity brought my family together. But why can't it do it for the rest of the people? So let me pave the way and show you as a stay-at-home mom who homeschools her children. I was able to do it and bring this opportunity together to share the light of this financial information is available to you. It's simple. It's a proven system. It, is it easy? No. There's hard and obstacles that you have to overcome. A part of the journey. Anything great takes work.
Hmm.
But I guess that's where the light worker comes in is like now I get to shine this light onto everybody I know and then everybody that they know. Let's show them. Let's be the bug light that the moths all come to. Like let's
Totally.
attract them. So
Yeah.
that's how I feel like that resonates is that those who are meant to be on this journey with us are going to be attracted to our light.
Totally, totally. Don't chase butterflies. Curate a beautiful garden, and the butterflies will come to you. I love that.
Yes.
I would say for light work, for the people who are like, huh, how would that relate to me in business, in our business? Someone who is helping other people. You're someone who's doing good work, service to others. If you do those things, then you're a light worker. It's pretty cool being involved in a business where there's a fundamental net positive to every time we make money in our business. And the nature of that is why I went through, experimenting slash seeing what was available of different business models and how I could build a big self-development community. My core mission in life is to build the most impactful self-development community. And I'm like, where could I do that? Like, how could I do that? What is available I can, use to foundation this in my life? And I discovered our company. And when we help people in a fundamental way, either save money on what they're already doing or get their money working harder for them as well too, then I just make money and I can help people on my team make money from just bringing a net positive to people's lives. And then it gives us a connection point where we're making money together. We're sustaining and building the freedom and excitement of our family dynamic. And we're just in a self-development community all the time. All the time, we're connected with people who all have growth mindsets. Every single person at all the conventions we go to, which there's one in just a couple months again with like 1,200 people in Banff, Canada. There's all of these awesome events where everyone there is just on a self-development journey and we're all helping each other with the same thing. And so it's pretty cool learning and being able to talk about things like this, which is fundamental and important related to self-development, and have this connection point where we both are actively making money helping people as well too, right? And we get to invite people onto this journey, right? So like as a light worker, it's kind of inherent with the role we have in our business. Once you start in our business, if you have a business with us, you are inherently a light worker if you're helping anybody. And I mean, even some of the more mundane things, you're technically still going into it with a positive intention. You know what I mean? And I think intentionality is the most important part about everything in your life. Like, why are you doing things? And that's going to ripple what you end up experiencing overall. So that's super awesome. When you think about your helping woman, you mentioned that you've had a specific emphasis on helping women and in overall in life and in business, I'd imagine. Like if you were to think about like 5, 10, 20 years of like the optimal timeline of reality of Anastasia, like the coolest scenario, the highest vibrational, the best timeline out there, what do you feel like some of the things that exist in that would look like in regards to your impacting of people, maybe some big visions you've had, like what do you see yourself being able to do in relation to this business slash in your lifetime overall? What are some things that excite you in that regard?
So many things. So, like, I guess a vision would be just creating that ability for the family unit to be together all the time. So, this opportunity could offer that, and while our children are young, both parents are at home, whether they're going to public school or you're homeschooling or whatever that dynamic looks for you, but the family unit is together at all times. It's indestructible.
Mm,
So, and because, like you mentioned, like our associations and our community here is such growth mindset oriented, a little personal share here, but like through marriage, the best marriage counseling my husband and I have ever gotten were through people that I met in this business.
mm,
There was some hard times, some hard things that we had to go through, and they're like, "Hey, I went through that.
mm,
Here's what we can do. Here's the support." So not only are they supporting me in growing my business, but they're also full on 100% in helping our relationship and what we can do and strategies and tools that are going to help us thrive so that we can keep the family unit together.
mm,
And then showing modeling that to our kids. So this next generation that's coming up, it's almost like kind of like I guess back to maybe when in the 40s or the 50s where it's like the family unit was always together. The children grew up seeing like just what is love, what is communication, what is just a holistic approach to running the family. Who leads? Well, we lead together. We're a family unit, we're a team, we all have our jobs and duties, and that's what's been proven here. Like that kind of explains exactly what our business model is. Well, it also works in our family life too. So I guess in the future, I visualize offering this to as many families or people before they even start a family, that this is what's possible. You don't have to worry about your spouse being on maternity leave for 6 months and then she has to go back to work and the baby's in daycare. That's not a worry a father has to have anymore, or a worry that the father's like, I can't afford to take time off to support my wife in the postpartum time. So it's just starting that foundation of like what I was so passionate about before. It's like now we're offering that a solution, I suppose, and a proven system to allow for the stresses and the anxieties and just the hardships that come with growing a family. Because there's both. Like it's been the most rewarding thing of my life, but it was hard when 2 days at home with a newborn baby and I was left alone because my husband had to go back to work because he wasn't allotted that time off.
Mm,
Whereas now, if I were to start a family where I'm at now, well, he gets to stay home as long as he wants.
mm,
And now seeing people in my team, I've helped them or shown them that they get to create that for themselves. So their postpartum and the beginnings of their business. So I guess you say they had a baby, but they also had another business baby. Just the trajectory that it's on is a dream come true, and it's so beautiful
mm,
that it would just all align and that they're able to grow their business and their family with a positive growth mindset that doesn't bring any stress that of course it brings stress, but not extra stress that has a solution to it. So that's like my vision going forward is just creating that a business that houses that opportunity for families to have that dream because we all dream of it. We all want that dream of the perfect life, the perfect family, whether it's just you and your spouse or you and your animals, whatever that perfect life looks for you,
mm,
it could happen here. And that's what I see in the future is just that cultivation. And then again, another dream would be to fund our own school for the community that we've created through the homeschool. We call it like our homeschool group.
mm.
It's like, well, look at the momentum we have and it's happening, it's happening. Well, now this opportunity can help fund that.
Totally, totally. I love it. My favorite part of all of that is irreplaceability. You got your best counseling from some people in the business. You've got this and that you learned from this and that person. You know, when I have built my team in my area, I have the home that I'm in right now and one of the top guy in my team's homes, and we're talking about building a gym for everyone on our team. There's actually a gym being liquidated right now where we're at, and we're looking into getting professional equipment. And we're talking about like a holistic development center, what a Geist-Gunnard holistic development center would look like, having a place where everyone could level up in all of these different ways of life and learn and grow, in addition to using the business as the connecting point and the vehicle. And so, in the same sort of way, when you're talking about there, like I love that there's holistic development that comes from everybody working together and giving their skill sets. And it's just this free exchange of value, and everyone can benefit from everyone else's skill. And it's just the business model or the framework, the connecting point that allows us to do that. It's just a plug and play system that I think as people develop more and more of an understanding of how to best utilize the company as well too, we're going to see some really exciting teams out there that are doing really incredible things in all of their life, in addition to what we do in a logical, mathematical way as well, too. So I love that. I think that my vision with things as well is to help people in the biggest way that I possibly can, reach as many people as I absolutely can with Geist Gunnard, build one of the biggest self-development communities in regards to allowing people to experience these different perspectives, these different life angles of where they're coming from, and these skills that they've had in their lives, such as yours, and how that relates to something that they can benefit from in their life, right? Because there's a percentage of people who are very similar to you, very similar to me, and everywhere in between, but there's tons of knowledge you have and experience you have and knowledge I have, experience I have, and everybody else that can benefit everyone else as well too. And it just takes a certain energy combination, a transmutation, and the right conversation to actually get that out of the person in a way which can be digested by the people. And so I think it's super exciting that we got to talk about some of these things and how your background relates to the business and go through all of that today. Is there anything else you were thinking about that you wanted to touch on before we ended things off? At the end of every podcast, we've been doing a tarot card. So we can end it off if you don't have anything else to talk about, where we can draw a card and interpret it based upon how we're going to go forward from this call and or like what this call symbolized from this moment onward. Anything else you want to talk about before that?
Nothing like really jumping out. I guess just to note like the people you can meet through this business. So like you and I met at an event that we had in September, and then also the people that are on my team or like my uplines team, like how we're all just meant to be together. We're all meant to meet each other at one point. So just for the person out there who feels like they're alone or don't have anybody to maybe bounce their dreams off, or maybe their dreams have been squished in some way, shape, or form, coming here is just going to open up an amazing door. Whether like,
Portal.
yeah, I don't know, just it's just exciting
We gotta
that
give it a
coming
portal. Come
here.
on, birth can't
Yeah,
be the only.
yes,
We
the
we get a
portal.
portal. Business gets a
Yes,
portal. You decide on what that portal
absolutely.
is called. Well, I get these cards. It is a portal to the start of the rest of our lives. Here we go.
Yes,
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm going to be the house in this situation, and so I'm going to force you to draw first. You have to decide how you're going to tell me which one you want. I'll spread them out a bit. If you want to wave your hands over the cards to get a good little intuition, little reading, feel free to do so, however you'd like to do it. You
I
can
think something right from the middle would be perfect.
okay, something in the middle. Okay. And then of these three cards, ready? Tell me when to stop. Tell me when to stop.
The one in the middle, because it's
Oh,
blurry actually,
okay.
from on what I'm seeing.
Sounds good. King of Wands.
Incredible. Wow.
So when you see the King of Wands, what does that mean to you in regards to the context of our call today and moving forward from here?
The king is definitely the foreseer, I guess, like the leader of the community. And of course, Wands is air, which I very much resonate with the flow. I'm very much a flow person. So I think like moving forward is just like jump into the stream that I guess, like our portal that we come through, you jump into this stream and then you just ride along it and just wait for the things to happen while there's also a structure in place for you. And I guess like the with the king, like foreseeing, he's also empathetic, but he also has a logical side as well. So again, that duality or that polarity of the divine masculine, I suppose, is like that's what the business is, and we all have it. We all have a divine feminine, we all have a divine masculine, but I feel like this business as a divine masculine energy will allow you to flow.
I love that. I love that. When I think about the King of Wands as well too, I think about the blue sky. Blue is like emotions and like a fresh you know, emotional calm openness to information or feelings and whatnot. You're looking backwards as well too, which can symbolize kind of doing this recap, seeing where we've came and like reviewing some of your past today, perhaps. I don't know. And you've also got that little what do you think that is? Is that a lizard? It's like a little black lizard or like chameleon.
I feel it is a lizard. Yeah, the wands have lizards in there, like that just are randomly placed in each of the cards.
Interesting. What's the symbology of the lizards? Do you have any interpretation of that?
Yeah, I think they're just their ability to, I don't know, they feel adaptable to me. Like if you chop their tail off, it'll grow back.
Okay. Yeah, like a
Um,
little chameleon. When
yeah, so
when I see it, I think about like it feels like a small like reptilian energy and reptilian I'd associate with like cold-blooded or whatever, and it's much smaller than this kingly figure. So it's kind of like in contrast to how big the king is. It's like maybe, you're reviewing, or both sides of you are reviewing what has happened, and maybe like the trauma or that type of side of things has been brought out, like the subconscious is being you're perceiving it, and or you're with it as well too in the process of all of that. And the yellow robe is like stimulation, and sitting on all of this information and thoughts and ideas. So that's awesome. Love it. Let's go for mine. I'm gonna make you pick mine as well too. So my fate is in your hands.
The one on, oh, I don't know. Are you mirroring? I'm gonna say like it's my right.
You're right. So this side over here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I'll do this one. Temperance.
Wow.
I don't even know what that word means. Temperance. How would you define the word temperance?
That's a good
Like,
question. I
it's
don't
like
know how to
having
do.
patience or something like that,
Yeah.
eh? Temperance is in a white robe. It has wings behind it, like angel wings, but they're red, which is interesting. Dipping one toe into water, pouring water from one chalice into another chalice. It has a sun behind it, a beautiful rocky mountain, beautiful green grass, flowers, etc. There is a thing on the third eye kind of place with energy coming out of it and like an enlightened head sort of vibe. And the individual is facing the the viewer, or like facing the card. There's also a path on the left side of the card, so like in the past, and there's a lot of grass, long grass, green in the right side, which is associated with the future. And so when I see this image, it makes me think about the experience that we just talked about, the journey of everything that we've both kind of came from and experienced, and all of that which we've grown from, kind of a spiritually focused conversation, the path to light work, the path to alignment, the higher vibrational thought process to become a better version of ourselves, and recapping that. This would perhaps potentially be our conversation, like a chalice, like emotion to emotion, feelings to feelings. We talked a lot about intuitive types of things, so we're kind of meshing our information that we exchanged with that. We were also trying to talk about both, both sides of the coin. We talked about how things could be perceived in a spiritual way, and people who accept that type of stuff will just get it immediately and go with that, and they understand it. And there's also people who'd not get it in as quick of a way. And that kind of makes me think of why these wings would be covered in the other way. It's like an angel, but there's a bit of polarity there. And in regards to the enlightened head, we've talked about a lot of things. And going forward, I think this will be a really exciting episode and thoughts to have to take away from people who will think about how these two sides of life, this more spiritual side of life, this more intuitive side of things, can interplay and actually help them with business, right? If any one person goes and, I don't know, cries in their car or whatever, that could potentially be something that symbolizes that higher sense of vibration, that higher sense of knowingness, that how they feel on the inside affects everything else. And then on the right side, there's the grass, and dipping in the foot of the water on the left foot and stepping on the grass in the right. So it's kind of like steeping into the emotions, steeping into the what's possible, what's known, what is reality, how does this stuff work, and heading into a lush, prosperous, beautiful path to hopefully a village where there's some awesome food or something. Maybe someone giving a birth, someone entering a birth portal where beautiful feasts will be had.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I appreciate you coming on today, and I think that was it. We'll slam this bad boy one more time, and we are ready to go. Thank
Awesome.
you for coming on.
Thank you.
Boom.
Whee!